Do you ever get frustrated that your business is still stuck at 6 or 7 figures? You're pushing toward that $10 million mark, but you keep hitting the ceiling. You're not sure why. You make more revenue, but you have less profit. You get more sales, get more clients and customers, but you have less money in the bank at the end of the month. We're going to dive into why that is. What is the number one reason? And what's the easiest and fastest way to scale to your first or next 10 million in revenue, your first next 8 figures? And this is not theory. This is not hyperbole. This is what we've actually done. And what we're going to walk you through tonight are the what we call our 8 figure frameworks that we've used over the last decade individually, but then also collectively as a team to help businesses in all different industries scale to that first or next 10 million in revenue, build the systems, the structure, and what you're going to get over the course of this video here and really the next 3 weeks, we're going to dive into specific strategies that you can take away and immediately implement. So if you're tired of being stuck, if you're tired of being stagnant, if you're tired of struggling, we're going to reveal to you what this is. This worked for several of our clients, all our clients who've been successful. We've implemented this, and a perfect example is the Wymans. They run a plumbing company, and they've been stuck around 1.5 to, I think they peaked at around 2.3 million in revenue in 2023. They engaged with us in 2024, so August of July of last year, and at the time they were at a spot where they didn't have much cash in the bank. The business was struggling. They're at about 50,000 cash. And if you want to grow your business, you have to have cash. Uh, you've heard it said cash is king. I like Tim says it better. What's you said it today?
Cash is king, but the cash generation or cash flow is the king of kings. You can have cash in the bank, but if you don't have consistent cash flow or access to capital to replace the cash going out of your business, you'll quickly be insolvent. And that's the killer of the business. It's not the lack of cash, it's the lack of cash replacing the outflow in cash.
And we're going to dive deep into that. Tim and I are going to break it down next week, that business scaling equation, so you understand it even better. But that's where they were at, about 50,000 in cash. Now they're sitting on multiple 6 figures of cash in the bank that they can reinvest into their business. But on top of that, they're generating more cash every single month, and they can invest into the business and then know that they're going to grow. So we know where to pull those levers. And then we've done this for clients that are, 1 or 2 million to clients that are, 20, 30, 40 million. And the Wyvans are now on track. They'll break 5 million this year. And we're still just getting started. We've only been working with them a little over 6 months now. So what we're going to show you is not complicated. I mean, these two went to college, the financial people. They're wearing blue so that we know that they're better, that they went to college. They're the college educate. I don't know if this was coordinated
It
It was
wasn't.
not coordinated.
or what happened.
Apparently, we just
Perk and I are
see
the
wavelength
we're the less smart ones.
We
We're
just
the
not a
homeschool
team.
I don't know
kids.
if I'd say that.
Oh, we all
That's what
coordinated
they-
apparently. This was not planned. Uh, but we're gonna walk you through these frameworks because here's the harsh reality of business. It's something, the statistic is somewhere around 90% of businesses never even break 7 figures. And they definitely don't break 8 figures. I think it's around 1% really get to that place of breaking through 10 million, and that's across industries. It's not an easy thing to do. It's a very hard thing to do. But I think we'd all agree, while it's hard, it's not incredibly complex
Mhm.
for most business industries.
Yep.
And this is why we've worked in dozens of industries, thousands of clients that we've coached and consulted, over 100 businesses that we've directly worked in and consulted, and we use the same frameworks. Now, for context, these are not frameworks that we just made up. It's what we've learned through a lot of iteration, and we've crafted these frameworks, but they're based on proven principles of business that we've learned. I mean, Heather's worked inside multinational, multi-billion dollar companies that are operating all over the world.
All of that, yes.
I've been inside multi-billion dollar companies, and we've also been in companies of small startups and everything in between. And so we've had the privilege individually and now collectively as a team to be in all these different businesses and recognize that there are certain business principles, strategies that work across the board. And so The real reason why businesses struggle is because you never transition from a founder driven business to a systematized business that runs off of systems. Think of it this way: it's like having a car, like the Flintstones. Did you guys ever watch that? The Flintstones?
Yeah.
That no, never.
No.
The finance and accounting people don't watch cartoons. Like it's
I don't
Kirk
like
and I, we're marketers. I'm a marketer at heart. So is Kirk, even though he's in HR, and we watch cartoons. It's creative inspiration. In the Flintstones, they have it's back in the Stone Age. There's no engine, so the whole thing of the Flintstones was
I know
they
the
had to power
story,
their
I
car
just
with their
didn't
feet.
watch it.
That's how most business owners are running their business. They're running it like a Flintstones car. When you have systems, you have an engine that runs your business. All you have to do is steer it. What's that?
Just walk.
Why not just walk? It seems very uneconomical to have the car. It's just extra weight.
They're cavemen. They're cavemen. They got to do what they got to
Very
do.
much so how people run their business sometimes. It's like that. Fair.
I agree with that.
I promise you, you will get high level business education here. No, but we like to have fun with it because it's fun to help business owners grow and generate millions and millions of more in revenue, but not only revenue, profit. So these systems are proven across industries. We've tested them and they continue to work. The you just have to add the right people and the right processes to it. So I want to give you some key signs because these most of the businesses that we work with come to us typically when they're in some kind of crisis. They're either stuck, revenue's not growing, it's not declining, but if you know anything about business, if your revenue's not growing, it is starting to decline. Um, they're either stuck, they're stagnant, where they're not moving forward backwards. Stuck, they just don't know what to do. Stagnant, they're trying everything, nothing's working. It's like being stuck in the mud, or they're just across the board struggling, even if they are growing or they're actually in decline, and then we're coming in to save the business. So at the end of this video, my promise to you is you'll understand where to start looking at your business and what you need to start implementing to start stabilizing yourself. So let's dive into that. I want to ask these guys real quick before we dive into these frameworks. We're going to blaze through these. So make sure you go back, watch the replay, subscribe on YouTube so you can review these. Um, what have you guys seen as we've worked with all of these different businesses and industries? Why do these frameworks, why do they work? Because a lot of people have a system or an algorithm. And it's one of the most annoying things I hear when someone says they have an algorithm for business success. An algorithm is based on math. And then you ask them, there's no math involved. Next week, Tim and I are going to break down the actual math of the algorithm for business growth. But why do these work?
Because it makes the complex simple. And I'll leave it at that for now.
It's pretty simple.
Teaser, anticipation. That's a lot of what we do with clients. We don't just go in and fix the business. We really strive to educate business owners to help them level up as business operators so that they're not reliant on us, but they understand what to do in their business. And then we're working collaboratively to really grow and expand their business.
Yeah, I would say that to go off of that, the true sign of competence is being able to take very complex ideas and simplify them, but not just simplify them for the sake of communication, but simplify them for the sake of duplication.
Yeah.
If I know something, but I can only tell you I know it, but I can't show you, I can't teach you, and I can't actually get your confidence to do the thing that I've told you can be done, then do I really know what I'm doing? I think with these frameworks, it's not just something that we've talked about or we think is a great idea. It's I mean, we're talking about at this point not to be a big number, but billions of dollars
Mhm.
in business generated from these frameworks.
Yeah.
So it's I would say this is the distilled version of what started, and it is very complex, and it's not complex in the sense of it's hard,
Mhm.
but it's not easy either.
Yeah.
And I don't want to disillusion anybody into thinking that just because you have the framework and we've simplified what is very complex or what could
Mhm.
be complex doesn't make it easy.
Yeah. You still got to put in that hard work. But here's what we've learned in working with so many different business owners. When you have the right frameworks, As a business owner, your job is not to know how to do everything. That's how you drive a business into the ground. We have clients that we've worked with in the past, and they've driven into the ground. Some of them listened and they stopped, and their business thrived. But when you're trying to know how to do everything, you end up micromanaging, as opposed to understanding how the framework functions and then leading the team, speaking to the team. So what we're giving you here are the 8 frameworks and how they work, not so that you can go and do them, but you understand how it works and you can implement it and then you can run it. None of you drive a car and know exactly how combustion engines work. Like you couldn't build one. Probably no one on this call. So, but you still drive a car. Why? So Heather, why do you think, what from your experience, why do these frameworks work so well and why are they so predictable?
I think it's like math, and it sounds weird to say that, but it kind of is the same thing, right? So there's just in math, if you learn how to algebra is very simple at the root of it. It can get really complex depending upon how many variables you add to it. But at the basic framework of it, it's very simple. It's you make sure each side is aligned.
Mm-hmm.
Business is very simple in that sense of you make money, you make more money than you spend money, and you get profit. That's a very simple construction of businesses. As you add more variables, people, industry, legalities, economics, those are the contributing factors that make it more complex. So if you're able to then strip out the complexities and get down to this is an equation, data doesn't lie, data just hints at what the problem is, then you can go look and see, okay, we have a problem. Let's go figure out and research, is this truly the problem? And what you'll typically find is when you have the math and the framework and the equations there, the data will reveal where the problems are and you go and
Yeah.
find the problem. So I think the human portion is what adds the complexity.
100%.
Yeah.
Always 100% of the time. So let's dive into these frameworks, and we actually have visuals so you can see it. Again, you want to go back and watch this. We're going to move quick because we really this is part of a whole program. We have a program called Phase 4 where we teach you how to implement the operating system, and we dive deep and fully break down and teach you these frameworks. In this video, we're giving them all to you so you have familiarity and you can start to ask the right questions in your business. So we're going to dive into that, and we're going to pop it up on the screen here. Oh, here we go. Change screens. All right. So we're going to dive through these 8-figure frameworks. So the first one is the 4 phases of growth. Now, when we look at businesses, every business goes through this cycle that we call the 4 phases of growth. And you're always in one of these stages, or you're between these stages, both on a high level, think 30,000-foot view, your business as a whole, but then also throughout your business. If you're launching a new offer or you're launching a new department or division within your organization. And it very simply breaks down to the foundation. This is the stage of your business where your focus is really refining your offering, making sure you have a scalable offer, not only scalable in your ability to deliver on it, especially if you're in the construction space and you have logistics, you have crew, you have labor, you have to be able to scale that. But also, you're developing a strategy to stabilize. A lot of, like I said earlier, a lot of the businesses that we work with, they're in a place where they're in some type of crisis. The business is declining, they're stuck at the same revenue, or they're struggling just to keep growing and or maintain the growth that they've started to achieve. So at this stage is really making sure that you stabilize the business. You've got a really solid foundation that you can build on. Most businesses, when they hit, depending on the industry, but typically around what 3 to 5 million, is where they start to feel the stress and notice the stress fractures in the foundation. Things start to fall apart. What would you guys say, real quickly, is the typically in the foundation stage where the first place that things start to fall apart, which is like a red flag, first crack to notice for a business owner?
I would say most of the time it comes down to process. Most of the time, what I've found over the years is that all of the intellectual property exists in one or two heads, typically the owner and co-owner or owner and partner, and people have kind of telephoned their way through the process, quote unquote, of the business, And by the time you get to 3 to 5 million, you're really talking about 12 to 20 individuals that are all trying to interpret what they haven't heard and do what they haven't seen from an owner that they may or may not have access to.
I would piggyback off of that, that not only that, that in combination with trying to be all to the market, because oftentimes early on, you're typically struggling for cash. You're trying to get some momentum. And so anytime the client said, I need this, yes, we can do that.
We do that.
And then we do everything. And then there cannot be any process that you really can create that is a consistent process
Yep.
because everything is a one-off exception to make customers happy.
But there has to be a balance in that regard. I think the core of the foundational phase or the stabilization phase is the key sign of if you are in this phase is whether or not you're experiencing pain.
Yeah.
If your business is more stressed than normal, or you are more stressed than normal, it's likely a component of you needing to lay the foundation again. The strategy you had to get you here isn't necessarily working. So you need to reevaluate what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how you're doing it, and then have the conversation of what do I do to get to the next step and stabilize not only the data flow, the cash flow, and the process flow, but also taking the next leap into how do I make sure it's reoccurring so it becomes predictable and you can go into the fortification and the predictability stages.
Yep. Absolutely. So then the next phase, and we'll walk through these, is fortification. When you have once you've solidified your foundation, this is where you move from just the strategy of what you're selling, who you're selling to, how profitable it is, how do you scale it, making sure that you can deliver this offer with a level of excellence if you truly care about your clients and customers. Then you move to focusing on the structure to support additional growth. What most business owners do is they skip straight from the foundation phase where they're working on the strategy. What are we selling? Who are we selling to? How profitable is it? And deliver it with excellence. And then they want to jump straight to the fortune phase where they start trying to scale. But you cannot scale. It's like a toddler trying to then go drive a car. They haven't gone through the proper phases to be prepared for that. So your business, whether it's, we've seen businesses at 3 to 5 million that are 20 years old and they're still in that fortification stage trying to operate as though they're in the fortune stage, but they don't have the structure. So your structure, this is your software, your technology, your leadership. Do you have a solid leadership team? Do you have leaders who can develop leaders and start to take work away from you, own processes, developing processes? Do you have a
People are responsible for those processes and accountable to those
Yeah.
processes.
Yeah.
And then the foresight phase, when you have that structure, part of the key reason for that structure is so that you have foresight, meaning you're now in a place where you've optimized the business so that you have the data telling you how your business is truly performing. And between the fortification and foresight, this is where business owners get stuck and you're making more money, but you don't have revenue.
That's the fun part.
You have revenue, but you don't have profit. And that's where you get really frustrated. But if you have the right structure in place, you can start to maximize because you leverage your systems to see your data, and the data will tell you where you need to shift in your business. Tim and I, again, are going to dive deeper into that concept next week with a business scaling equation, which we'll talk about very briefly here. And then finally, you have the fortune phase where you can start to capitalize. You have cash, and you go through this phase at different stages. I mentioned the Wymans earlier. They're to some degree in a stage where they've got cash stacked in the bank, and we can start to capitalize on that opportunity and on upcoming opportunities that require forward investment, bigger projects that require purchasing new equipment or hiring additional labor technicians and labor. We can actually do that. So this again happens at different levels. Any final thoughts on that framework before we move forward?
No.
All right, so we'll move on to the next framework. This is one of my favorites. So, question, how many of you have thought to yourself in looking at your business, you want to grow your revenue, and you've thought, I need more leads. I should have a t-shirt for every client that says, I need more leads. And underneath, it'll have it crossed out and say, no, you don't. Because the solution to failing revenue or stagnant revenue isn't more leads. The reason is you need to buy more leads. And if you're already struggling with not having profit, you have no money to buy more leads. Any thoughts on that? Did I miss anything?
I mean, there's an aspect of it depends,
Mm-hmm.
but in general, yes. If you have failing revenue, oftentimes your first instinct is to cut marketing spend, and sometimes that should be the last place you cut. But in
Right.
some cases, it's the first place you cut if you can prove or you have a belief that the sales team is not following up to their best ability on what the marketing team is producing. Because then you are investing into a cost center that isn't producing any revenue and you want to curb that. And it's not the marketing's fault that the marketing qualified leads are not converting, it's the sales team's fault. And you have to have the data to be able to validate that.
Which is why these four levers still, notice it's within the foundation, fortification, foresight, fortune. At the beginning, you need more leads. You just need more people to sell to. Then when you start to grow, you need to fortify. Now you want to improve the quality of those leads so that more of them convert and they convert at a higher value. You want to increase your conversion on the number of leads. You're converting 20% of your or 30% of your leads instead of 20% of your leads. And then finally, your lifetime value. Depending on your business type, lifetime value for a customer could look like repeat business, or if you're in the construction space or you do remodels, that is something that can be repeated, but you're gonna have months and months in between, sometimes years, before there's an event where a customer needs you. So that higher lifetime value can look like a client sending you a referral that brings you more revenue and another client. So that client has become more valuable because they're now a source of leads for you. And just as a little tip, referral leads convert 60 to 70 times at a 60 to 70 time higher rate than leads that you buy through advertising. So that we call the fortune framework because there's four levers to fine tune your marketing and your sales. So notice the first two, more leads and better leads, that's all marketing. More conversion, higher lifetime value, that is much more on the sales side. This one, we talked about this on the last episode. So if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see it up in the corner, top left corner, where you can click it. You can go watch that episode after this, where we broke down this transformational leadership matrix. This is another framework that really dives into people. I'm gonna let Kirk speak to this because Kirk is our chief of people, and he's really spearheads our efforts in leadership development and things like that.
I think, you know, one, I would start with going to watch last week's episode.
Yeah.
But beyond that, um, if you are sitting here and saying, I can't find good people or I can't find motivated people, that ultimately comes down to your ability to attract attracts like. And so if you want to get more of something, you have to be that something before you go get more of it. So as you look through this framework, it's really understanding where you sit on this grid at any given time, but ultimately understanding that whether you're wearing multiple hats or carrying multiple stresses, welcome to business ownership. You're going to be sitting in one or more of these quadrants at any given time. Your ability to, one, speak into your own life, but two, speak into the life of others through uh, inspiration. It could be as simple as sharing a quote. And we were talking yesterday about this, but ultimately it comes down to finding different ways to, one, keep yourself pumped up, if you will, but two, how can I show up for others? I'm a big believer that if you feel like you're at the end of your capacity, if you've reached the end of your bandwidth, find somebody to help.
Yeah.
If you want to figure out how to be a transformational leader, find a need and fill it. A lot of times we get into these modes, and I'm speaking to myself.
Mhm.
You get into these modes where it's a fight or flight, and that's just nature at work at its best. It's, am I going to abandon the problem or am I going to fight and stay in this thing?
Yeah.
And so as a leader, unfortunately, you don't have a choice. you will either be leading or you will look behind you and find that no one's following. Those are your options.
Yeah. And so make sure you go back and watch this, because if there's one thing that's most important in your business is leadership. And how do you respond? This matrix really breaks down what does it look like when you respond to success and failure with humility or arrogance. Help you take an honest look at where you're at as a leader and how you're showing up and where to adjust. And this is just one of the slides in this framework. On the other training last week, we break down all of them.
One thing right before we move on from that, if you find yourself as a leader doing more statements and making
Mm.
more direction than you do asking questions and guiding the conversation, I want you to pay attention to that, because if you are telling people what they have heard before and they're not moving, the problem is not on the hearer.
Mhm.
The problem is on the messenger.
Yeah.
So another t-shirt.
Another t-shirt.
Yeah,
Yes.
we got a line of altruism t-shirts coming out with all these quotes. So, speaking of leadership, the last framework really speaks to how are you showing up as a leader. This framework we call the 7 levels of value contribution. Within your organization, it's a framework that helps you understand how to not necessarily rank people, but identify what level they're at in terms of what they contribute and what they should be contributing. So there at the very bottom is the implementer. This is your, for lack of a better way of saying it, your most entry level employee who just does a thing. They pull levers, they push buttons. Their job is to just put something in place and run it. Then you have the executor. That person's job is to take responsibility for certain functions and complete a specific task. Your creator, this is the person who's building things. They are uh, creating something. These are people like could even be salespeople, graphic designers. A lot of you could outsource these things as well. Yeah, your middle management, your strategist. This person's job is to think and coordinate what everyone below them on this pyramid is then taking action on. Your leader, that's the person within your organization whose job is to manage and not manage, but inspire and direct that team, hold them accountable, develop other leaders. You should be living in the place of visionary, where you're saying, this is where we're going. This is what we're going to accomplish. You're inspiring everyone else. And many of you, you're building because you aspire to get to that very top level of the pyramid, which is the legacy builder, where you're now in a position that your business is generating really your passive income from your business is more than your expenses. And you can start to play with your money. You can start to send, like Kerr likes to say, send your money out to have babies and bring back babies and babies with your money. But for most business owners that we work with, when they come to us, they're sitting at that leader level where they haven't even elevated to the inspirational leader who is now inspiring and casting vision direction for the leaders beneath them. So I'll open it to the team to speak to that.
I actually would agree with you, but I also would say too, I don't say but and I'd also like to add that a lot of times you actually see business owners stuck in the creator mode often as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, and they actually never make it to the leader mode, but they actually think they operate as leader when in reality they're not that far ahead yet.
That's true.
I would take it down one more level.
Mhm.
That most businesses that get stuck, it's because the owner operator exists between executor and creator, and they can't get out of the executor role because they can't delegate to staff.
Mhm.
And so because they can't delegate the execution role, they get stuck in creator role
Yeah.
because you can't be in 3 roles. You can only be in 2.
Yeah, that, I mean, it definitely goes back to the beginning of the conversation where
Why do you get
if
stuck?
if you can't teach somebody, if you can't simplify what it is that you are doing so well that it allowed you the confidence to launch into being a business owner, then you cannot duplicate into another generation of employee.
Yep.
And if you can't reproduce yourself into another level, I would even go as far as saying that most difficult hire is going to be that strategist,
Hmm.
the one that you are starting to offset that thinking and
Mhm.
allowing somebody in your business to be,
Yeah.
let's say, the smartest one in the room. Because I let's just be candid, most business owners, we left the place that we were because we were the best at what we were doing.
Hmm.
And a lot of times we have great engineers and great technicians and great producers or great, you name, fill in the blank. But business owner is so much bigger when it comes to leading people outside of yourself. It's one thing to lead yourself well. It's another thing to lead two people well. It's another thing to lead two departments well.
Yeah.
Once you get to that organizational bandwidth where you are sitting in a leader seat, that means you have at least 1 to 3 strategists below you,
Hmm.
and you're paying them to essentially direct the day to day. But in order to get there, you have to have processes and systems in place for them to pull those levers.
Yeah. So for you as business owners, think about where you're at. I mean, Heather mentioned it, Tim mentioned it. You're still stuck in the lead. I said you're still stuck in the leader position. Then Tim and Heather said creator, the executor, implementer. This also helps you not only recognize where you're at, but who do you need to bring into your organization and train up so you can move to that next level. So if you're stuck creating things in your business, and you're always going to be strategizing. Most business owners, when you start, you are the implementer through the strategist. You are figuring out the strategy, you're creating everything, you're doing everything, you're implementing everything. To move up to that leader, who do you need to bring in? You need to bring in competent people. So this framework, when we teach the full framework, it dives into exactly how to do that. And then Kirk gets to do what his jam is and teach you how to hire people and attract people and train people through the employee life cycle, which we're actually going to talk about that framework as well. So the next framework, this one truly took at least a decade to develop. As was thinking about businesses and how they function and learning, and then talking to our team and all of these ideas, this is the many iterations later in identifying how do small businesses operate in terms of the departments and the functions versus multi-billion dollar, tens of billions of dollars organizations. How do you run an organization that big? How does Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk build these massive companies and they're able to capitalize in the marketplace? They're able to get ahead of everyone else. Is it just because they have more money? And what I identified, and then really there was a day where Heather and I sat down and really refined this, and she opened it up in a way that I hadn't seen, and we ended up with this, and we call it the integrated data and communications pyramid. It's a structure for how the departments and department heads in your organization sit, so that communication, there are no blind spots. Everyone is communicating across every department, and your execution of your strategy gives you valuable data to improve your strategy, which improves your execution. This is how we restructure every business that we work with. And the great thing is, when we do this, it it doesn't require a complete overhaul of the business. It just requires different processes. So I'll let Heather speak to that, how that looks in action and application.
Well, first, let's talk about how you get to there, because typically most businesses never get to that spot at all.
Hmm.
In fact, they typically, as a business, when you first start, you are everything, so you're at the center of it. As you grow, you get your marketing department and sales, your HR and your finance, and they typically are side by side. And when you have that, there's silos. And what I mean by silos is that you have different departments making the best decisions, creating process, creating communications that's great for that department, but only works for that area of the business. And no one's really working together. The communication is really, it's like playing telephone.
Oh, for sure.
As they grow, there are some businesses again that will start to talk. So you can start to see like on our diagram, marketing and sales will start to talk together because they're the closely knit or teams. And you'll see finance and accounting. Sometimes finance and accounting are harder to talk to because there's a little business owners have that little thing of finance and accounting, which one's better. I particularly think it's accounting, but you probably Tim might be feel differently. But ultimately, at the end of the day, those two teams, marketing and sales and finance and accounting, really should be right hand, left hand. And they should be working together. Marketing and sales is where everything starts because they are the ones that are going to drive in the leads that really start the process across your business. From there, that's the marketing is like, hey, we're going to set the strategy. Finance and accounting says, hey, can I take this strategy and run with it? Can we afford to do it? If they say yes, great, then we execute on that. And the execution then goes back to operations because as leads come in, sales will convert them. Now we have to actually execute on a promise to the customers, provide the service or provide the product. Once we have all that, you have completed a cycle of a customer sale. And now you have data, which is awesome. That data now gets tracked back into marketing and sales. Great. What about that actually worked? And can we replicate it? And if we do, we continue to replicate it over and over again. And that's how you continue to scale. To get to this model, the goal with this is to have not only your communication in an evergreen loop, but also your systems and your data, meaning that typically as owners grow, you have your CRM, which is usually the first system that business owners use. And then you have your financial software, which is typically like a QuickBooks. Typically, you'll end up having a lot of different other apps, whether that be Twilio, Smarty, all off the side of your CRM, and then you'll have third-party AP applications off of your finance software, but they're still two separate systems. The goal at some point in time in your business, especially if you're trying to fortify and then have that foresight, which is using your data to make quality decisions, they have to be integrated or connected at some point in time. The key to that is making sure that you do it early enough to where you don't have a giant mess.
Yeah.
Or you scale too fast, you have to go back and you have to really break things in order to do it. So there's so much to dive into there. I mean, literally, when we really teach this, we'll spend a good hour on it to really break it down and connect all the pieces. And you can tell Heather gets really excited about this because it's all systems and integration. And the great thing is, it's incredibly simple. The difficulty comes in executing it and building it, and that's where you have people like us, and we help you through that. So this next framework, if you've followed us for any amount of time, you've heard a common theme that the best strategies I find in business, and that really every strategy I have in business, and really for all of us, is really founded in our core beliefs, our core values. And this one comes straight out from the Bible. I'm stealing this from Jesus himself, greatest marketer to ever live. How do you reach people? How do you connect with them and take what you do and potentially turn it into a movement? And I studied the life of Jesus and I asked this question. I really started asking who's great at connecting with people? Like who throughout history has done a phenomenal job of rallying people and creating a movement with whatever it is they're, for lack of a better term, selling or promoting. And throughout history, the most impactful, we base our calendar on it, is Jesus. So we call this the savior cycle, where put in these terms, you want to show up for in the marketplace for your ideal customers as that savior. They are looking, whether it is I need my floors redone, I need my home restored because of a fire, I need to buy a home or build a home. You're coming in to provide them with that. And so you'll hear us say often, value first, value always. We show up to serve. That's why business builders every single week, we give more value than you'll get out of most $10,000 coaching programs, and we do it absolutely free. If you're watching this on YouTube, the most you're paying is $14.99 a month for YouTube Premium, which isn't even needed in order for you to watch this video because we don't even monetize them. So we show up to serve, value first, value always, and we're looking to solve a problem. How can we give you solutions? Every one of these frameworks solves a specific problem that we know you're facing in your business or will face. We want to supply you with resources. How can you implement this? How can we help you? What else do we have for you? Go back, if you're on YouTube, go to our playlist of business builders and watch every episode. There's tons of training in there that's valuable that you can implement right away. Our whole goal in that is to help save you the headache, save you the pain, save you the frustration, save you the years that we've spent to learn these things, and save you from potentially losing your business or having to start over. And when that's happened, we want to continue to be here in relationship with you to serve you and sustain the success you have. Because the most heartbreaking thing we ever see with business owners is that they work with someone to say, I'll use marketing agencies. They get you more leads, you grow, and now you have a whole nother set of problems that they can't solve.
Yeah.
or you work with consultants who say they're going to grow your business, and next thing you know, you have no cash, and you just have lots of work to do, and you don't know what to do, and you're kind of left out in the cold because you have to continue paying them. So we took a really backwards approach, and we said, what if we just help people a lot for free, and then sustain them, help provide the resources so that they can work with us. So that's our approach. Maybe it's backwards. Who knows? Maybe it'll fail, but the very least we'll have put out a lot of value to help people. Um, how does this resonate with you guys? Because you guys are on the team because you care more about transformation and helping people than just make money. Because honestly, you guys can make, you could go somewhere else and make money.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it comes down to how do I serve best? And I think having these frameworks really helps us as a team identify where the brokenness is.
Mhm.
So if I'm looking at the savior cycle, my first thought is, if Jesus truly is the best marketer, he made 12 cold calls and converted 11.
Right. Actually, you technically converted 12, but
One just unwound.
11 unwound. Yeah,
Yeah,
it happens.
a lifetime value.
Got to work that chargeback.
You
It's a charge back.
I like that.
But I mean, ultimately, it's how can we help? Where can we serve? We know that doing the right thing the right way,
Mhm.
it will pay off.
Yeah.
And I think we've all, to varying degrees, seen that throughout our career when you go above and beyond, whether you're an employee or the owner, um, just showing up for the clients that trust you.
Yeah.
They've put, in essence, their business in our hands.
Mhm.
And I think whether you're a team member or a board member, that's a very serious thing. Like,
Yeah.
we take the gravity of that because you you could very well keep doing what you're doing and have success because you get to define what success is. We have the fortune of being a part of a lot of stories of success where we've seen the other side, where uh, either activity has risen, belief has risen, skill has risen,
Mhm.
or the combination of all those there within rise. And we've also been on the other side of a massive exit.
Yeah.
So seeing, we've got clients that have had exits, and it's really cool to see their Instagram change from them doing business to them showing us, the plane that he bought and the things that they're doing and the family time that they're doing. And it's an early exit, and
Yeah.
it was massive. It was good. It was fun. Still
Yeah.
is.
And I like that you say that, because for you as business owners, you're building a business. Typically, most small business owners are building for a family. You've got a wife and kids, you've got your husband and kids, you've got relatives, people that you care about, who you're building for, to take care of them, because you want to build something worth being known for, but leave something worth being remembered for. And that's what really drives us. Why we do this show at Business Builders every single week, and we ask the question: how much value can we pack in an hour that is consumable and position it in a way that it's actionable? Because all one of my pet peeve in the space of business consulting is fluff content that's not helpful, that drives to make an offer, overcharge you, underdeliver, and now they made profit and your business is less than it was, or struggling more and in a worse place than when you first engaged. So our approach has been, through Business Builders, we're going to serve and prove through the content that's free that you can take it and use it and make an impact in your business. And that's why the clients who've worked with us have come to us, because we had a client um last 2 weeks ago. They paid a consultant over $100,000 for some kind of coaching, and said they get more value out of Business Builders every week than in $100,000+ worth of consulting.
Yeah.
And I have no I don't feel the need to shy away from it. We are very good at what we do, which is why we can give away so much for free because we have so much more to give. And if you get value out of this, we want you to keep getting value. And then maybe one day you'll work with us and we can really dive in and really help you transform your business. So the last framework, and I'll pass it over to Kirk because this is really his baby. This is one that is close to Kirk's heart as a HR guy or an actually a marketer posing as an HR guy. I'm just going to let Kirk explain this one. We don't have a slide for this one, but it's the employee life cycle.
Yeah, the employee life cycle is really mapping out each one of those touch points that a team member is going to take with your company. So a lot of times, and I've been guilty of this when you have the stress of I need help with the things I need help with
Yeah.
right now, and I will tell you from my own experience that throwing people at your problems is a recipe for more problems.
Usually
So
people are the problem within whatever's happening.
I uh, I will say it long and I will say it loud. People are the most dynamic part of our business. Processes, they're pretty predictable once they're built. Finances, data, you can look for the tea leaves and it will tell you a story. People are gonna be people.
People are going to be.
So really diving into this framework, it's really about how am I going to attract the talent that I need into my business. And what I mean by attracting the talent that I need, there's a ton of talented people out there that will work for you in exchange for a paycheck. The difference is how do I attract people that are aligned with my mission, vision, and core values to a degree that it's a personal conviction that they're successful inside of your business versus being successful in spite of your business. That selection process of really filtering through the candidates that come in. How are you attracting them? What's the story that you're telling the community that either attracts that talent or repels those people from your business? And I'm okay if somebody doesn't apply because of what we're putting out there.
Mhm.
The other side of it is the onboarding experience. We know Harvard Business Review tells us through study that people make a decision, a long term hiring decision, within the first 2 business days of being in that environment. Meaning, they may be with you for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, but they decided whether or not they were going to be engaged in that first 2 days. And the scariest thing that you can hear out of that whole thing is that you may have people in your business that decided 2 days in subconsciously that they're not going to be there long term. And I'll give you an example. We were working with an interior designer, and I had mentioned this in conversation, and she had kind of walked up to me after and she goes, I don't know if that's true because I don't like where I work now, but I've been there for 4 plus years. I go, great. What's in your office? And we're doing an off-site meeting and I said, what's in your office? She goes, what are you talking about? I go, you're an interior designer. What's in your office? And she had 0 personal items in her office. I said, you decided in your onboarding that you weren't
Mm.
going to be there long term. And the reality flooded her face.
Hmm.
Huh.
But that's the reality. You have an opportunity as a leader to create an environment where people will truly want to latch on to what you're doing and where you're going and how you want to do it, or they will exchange their time for your money. And you may get some variation of a medium success rate. Most people will use that first 2 days to figure out who you are, the first week to figure out who you are. And at some level, they're using their weekends to look for their next opportunity.
Yeah.
And then once you have them on board, how are you developing people? We've been talking about this duplication and really creating the next generation, but once you get them through the onboarding cycle of that first 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the role, maybe even up to a 90-day period, how are you developing them? How are you engaging in them personally and professionally to where you start to identify where their strengths are, where their opportunities for growth are? How are you pouring into them? I say it all the time, but I will tell you that if you invest in your people from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock, they will invest in your business from 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock. And I have yet to have anybody prove me wrong. If you pay attention to the personal side of those humans that are latching on and saying, "Hey, I'm signing up to be a part of your vision," I will tell you right now, when they clock in, proverbially, they will be all in.
Yeah.
And if you give them any reason to drop confidence or drop belief or drop trust, start posting, because that person will probably either subconsciously or consciously be making a decision for their next opportunity. That leads us to the last step, which is retention. I don't I don't fear retention for retention's sake. I don't want to retain just to make myself feel good as a HR person or as a business leader. I want to retain people because they're growing, they're developing, they're happy, they're healthy, they're referring people. I mean, you mentioned it in the marketing. Referrals convert at 70 times a
Yeah.
traditional lead. I will tell you that we have a client that 98% of their team is referrals from their team. So you show me that you want an aligned team that's moving forward. And we're not talking about 2 and 3 people. We're talking about close to 20 people that have come into this business from referrals from within the business. And I will tell you that same group has found their their pool of people very small right now, because that same core group of employees, those team members are very protective of the environment that they've created.
Yeah.
So if you don't align core values, if you don't get where they're going, if you're not willing to put in the work that they're willing to put into, they don't they don't really want you. And quite frankly, we've had three team members that have come in the last 90 days, and they've lasted about 2 to 3 weeks each. You figure out real quick that you don't fit into a place you're not aligned with.
Yeah. There's a principle in marketing that the best salesman in your company is your product. And most business owners don't think of their team members, their employees, as a product of the business. But if you cultivate the right team, no one will sell the opportunity to be a part of your team better than them, in the same way that nothing will sell your product or service better than your product or service.
Yeah, I would
So,
say, even to kind of tease next week, it's one of your capitalizations. It's human capital.
yeah. And on that note, the final framework, and I think I might have said this was the final one, but the final one is actually, I'm going to pass it over to Tim. We're just going to give you high level on this, because this one we really have to break down. This simple equation is the difference between a 6 and 7 figure business and an 8, 9, and 10 figure business. I'll leave it at that. I'll pass it to Tim, and then we'll really break it down next week so you know how to really utilize it.
So this framework is really how we look at businesses. It encompasses everything and it attempts to quantify everything. Again, going back to the IDC concepts, finance and accounting. In accounting, we are talking about what is, what exists, what are the facts. In finance, we're talking about what if. Based off of the facts, what could be? What do we think is going to happen? What if we do this? What if we do that? And so this entire concept is taking a lot of the encompassing concepts and frameworks that we're talking about and trying to turn it into a math formula. But it starts with the basis of accounting is the accounting equation: assets equals liabilities and equities. So take that exact same logic. When you're looking at your business, you sell something, and so you have volume. You sell it for a price, so you have a value. You have a cost attached to it. So we have a cost and efficiency multiplier, which we will get into probably in about 2 weeks, because that's the fun part of the equation. And of course, at the end of it, your equals is business value or capital. There's 4 types of capital, but right now let's just think of it as business value. And so we think about, how do we grow? Well, we start with what is. What is my current volume of the product I'm selling? What do I currently sell it for? And what is my current cost structure? And that gives me my capital at the end of the month that I have generated, my cash flow, my free cash flow. From there, if you want to grow by 100 more units, but you don't change anything else, well, do you have the capacity from a fixed cost standpoint? Because fixed costs grow stepwise, not linearly. So they don't typically grow like this. They typically grow like this. Blink. Because you have stepped growth, you have costs that are set. You hire an employee and that costs $60,000, and they can do anywhere from 100 production units to 2,000 production units. And so you don't have to hire another employee until you've hit 2,000 more units. So that type of growth is always considered stepped. So you want to grow by 100 units. Now you've solved that volume component. If you don't change your price, you've increased the business value by 100 units. Lots of math without any whiteboards. That's effectively how we look at what is the business currently doing. And again, if we go back to the 4 phases, when you are in pain, when your business isn't profitable, oftentimes what we're doing is we're attacking the cost structure. So we're identifying, where can we extract inefficient spend or cost that doesn't need to be there, so that when you take a look at the numbers and you have the multiplication of the volume you do versus the value you provide, what can I get my capital or my cash generation to 0 or a little bit positive, so we have wiggle room to reinvest back into the business. It's often my favorite place to exist in a business, looking at the what can we do, what are our possibilities. But we'll get into a lot of that over the next couple of weeks, because this is really where we get a lot more entertaining, and what is the possibility to reinvest into the business or extract from the business to provide fortune for families.
Yep. So there's a lot packed in that, and I'll give you a little tease. If your business is, if you've made more revenue but you have less profit, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to lower your cost. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to increase your price. That's the whole point of this equation, is knowing what to actually do. Do I need to sell more? Do I need to sell it for more? Do I need to make it more profitable by lowering my cost? When you understand this equation, you understand what to do, and it's predictable. And so every business we go into, the very first thing we do, even though this was the last framework we talked about, saved it for the last because it's really the most important. Tim looks at the financials, and the financials tell a story, and it tells us where the opportunity is, and then we run through that equation and we make a decision. If we do this, what will happen? If we do this, what will happen? We run through multiple scenarios before we take action on anything, and we were very consistent in seeing the outcome that we predicted, because business is a machine. Math is the language of business, and you understand how to speak the language, you understand what the business is telling you is wrong with it, and what the business is telling you needs to be fixed so the business can be healthy. So if your business is struggling, you don't know why, it's because you're not speaking the right language for your business to tell you, hey, here's where you need to fix me. So we're going to dive into that next week. But here's what I want to challenge you with. I want to challenge you, and then I want to give you an opportunity. Make sure you subscribe so you can see the next 3 videos in this series, where we're going to break these frameworks down, especially next week, and then we'll dive into marketing and sales. But where in your business, what framework do you need to implement right now? Which of these 8 frameworks? Go back and watch it. Take notes. Which one do you need to implement right now? And then that's the challenge. The opportunity is, if you're not sure, I want you to go down to the description in this YouTube video, and there'll be a link there where you can reach out to our team and book a strategy call, where we'll help you identify where that opportunity is. And I'll say this, we don't do sales calls. If you're on that call, we are on there to identify where we can help you and what the opportunity is, to give you clarity into what's happening and what you need to do, and give you confidence that it can be fixed. And if you ask, we will then tell you how you can work with us. But like I said at the beginning, our goal is value first, value always. So we appreciate you guys. Subscribe here on YouTube, catch all of these, take them, rewatch them, and get all the value, and then go implement ask questions, drop comments. We're here to serve you. So we appreciate you guys. We love you guys. We'll see you on the next episode of Business Builders.
Boom time.